as we were talking about getting ready for this session, we were thinking about how to be a little bit sort of meta themes, but how to be quite specific and practical as we face the prospect of a new administration. And so I took David to heart and decided I would put my presentation in the form of a presidential briefing. So if you'll bear with me, I'll share with you the reflections that I would share with President Ryan. Mr. President, our clean energy innovation economy is being mangled by a maze of mandates and is idling through an idiocracy of incentives. Our investors and innovators are awash in a tidal wave of rent-seeking, crony capitalism, and moral hazard. Your administration can and must get the government out of what it does badly and abandon what is now an utterly permission-based clean energy economy. Your administration should focus the government on what it must and does do very well, while unleashing the market to do what it must and does do very well. If we do this right, on a bipartisan basis, we can deliver a strong and growing economy that will have the resources to produce more clean energy, much faster, and at a significantly lower cost, and with a lot more American jobs and a lot fewer American lawyers. Be both big and bold and small and humble. So here's the situation, and here's a few recommendations. First, since 1998, the United States has put in place more than 100 federal and state mandates directed either directly or indirectly at abating greenhouse gases and air pollution. Interestingly, this has been action occurring at the federal level and the state level, and notwithstanding many in our party, at least 6 of the most consequential of these mandates were market-based, dare I say, cap and trade. Of all of these major market-based and, dare I say, cap and trade mandates, Republicans were in substantial majorities in voting in favor of these solutions. On the other side of the ledger is over $150 billion of incentives. Now, I don't know about you, Mr. President, but when you've incentivized everything, it seems to me you've incentivized nothing. You're just making a transfer payment from the tax side of the ledger to the grant side of the ledger, and everybody's benefiting, but nothing actually is additionally being accomplished. Now, as we look forward to what to do with this, how we look back on what we've got and how we translate to what we need to understand that regardless how you feel, or either end of the party feels, or either end of the Democratic Party feels, what's on the table right now is the prospect of trying to abate 60 gigatons of projected greenhouse gas emissions. Now, I'm kind of simple. I like to think straightforward about these things. I don't actually know what 60 gigatons means. There's an incredible innumeracy to this climate change question. Nobody understands the scale, so I tried to break it down in a very practical way. So if I have to find 60 gigatons of avoided emissions each year between now and 2050, I need to break it down to its pieces. So what's 1 gigaton? So to help you understand, Mr. President, what 1 gigaton is 507 coal-fired power plants with carbon capture and storage. That's 10% of the installed base of coal today, large coal-fired power plants today, and today, for all practical effect, we have 0 examples of it. It's 1,000 geologic sequestration projects, like Norway's Sleipner project. We have 3 of those today, sir, so that's encouraging. We need 300 times more. Natural gas combined cycle, great technology, cheap gas. I need 608 of those just to get 1 gigaton. So that's 10% of the current installed capacity. So I've got to do that a few times over. Efficiency. We had great success. George W. Bush and Nancy Pelosi taking the stage with the most consequential vehicle fuel efficiency mandate in the history of the world. We have to do that a few more times. You have to take 290 million cars, take them 20 miles per gallon more efficient. That's all the cars in China, and actually more than all the cars in the US or the EU. Wind energy is the same. You need 165,000 2-megawatt turbines. That's 2 to 3 times the current installed capacity. So that looks like a nice slug to go after. Concentrated solar, I need 1,100 of those. That's 300 times our current experience. Landfill gas, I need 7,700 of those. Solar voltaics, give me the state of Washington. Solar voltaics, give me 100 times the current installed amount of solar voltaics, and I get 1 of the 60 I need. And then on CO2 storage and new forest, give me the entire state of Washington, make it a desert, turn it into a forest of Douglas fir trees, and I've accomplished 1 gigaton of emissions. So this is big, it's consequential, it's hard. It is doable, but we have to understand the scale to accomplish it. So, how do we get there? We have to get there by getting everybody on the same page to the extent we can. We need solutions that are scalable. The solutions need to be market-driven as much as possible. They need to be common ground. And I think it really should be bold, Mr. President, and start at the top. The political divide over this issue will not be addressed until we straight up have a legislative debate and vote on how far, how fast we want to go with our greenhouse gas emissions trajectory. And do nothing else. Have the debate. Pick the number. Is it the number from Paris? Is it 20% less than the number Paris? Is it 10% more than the number at Paris? I actually don't have a recommendation because as a market-driven guy, what I care most about is the numbers going down, and substantially. Because if you implement the policies that I would recommend to you today, sir, as long as it's going down substantially, we know, based on prior experience with these kinds of policies, that the American innovators and the regulators and the academics are going to deliver the surprising solutions at scale that we never thought imaginable. Just think of the acid rain trading program from 1990, in which nobody predicted the method by which that was ultimately achieved, and it came in at half the cost that we thought. We can do that again and again and again if we unleash innovators to do what they do well and stop having them wait to get permission to do so. So, if I have one policy to recommend to you, sir, and there was an incredible debate earlier today among a prior set of panelists at a conference I attended, make electricity markets competitive. Quarantine the monopoly in the electricity system to the distribution wires and unleash the rest. One of the biggest impediments to capital planning and investment and introduction of new technology and its relationship then into transportation and into agriculture is our Byzantine, outdated, obsolete system of 2,500 utilities, most of them regulated monopolies. You need to allow the big guys to consolidate so they have the scale to invest at the scale we need. You need to carve out the middle, and you need to unleash tens of thousands of providers that can now compete to put their wares into those systems. Second, how do you do that? Well, I have to say, as someone who fought for years to try to do it through a regulatory process and failed, that's not going to work. As someone who fought for decades to try to do this through state or federal legislation, and that failed, it's not going to work. I hate to tell you, sir, but this is the one time when lawyers are a good thing. File the lawsuit. The current electricity system is a de facto violation of the Constitution's Interstate Commerce Clause. So be done with it and watch what happens. Second, simplify power generation mandates. You saw the list. Renewable portfolio standards, the Clean Power Plan, the regional state initiatives, all of the building efficiency standards that deal with energy. We have so many mandates, and if I line them all up, I could show to you, sir, that almost all of them overlap, and in many instances, many of them compete with each other. Think of the case, sir, of wind at night putting nuclear out of business. Makes no sense. Related to renewable portfolio standards, and then pushing a zero-emission source out while we're trying to encourage a new zero-emission source. They should be doubling together, not one subtracting from the other. Also, to simplify the mandates, we know how to do it because we've done it in pretty much every other sector and regulatory system. It needs to be technology neutral, performance-based, have a cap on costs. So, sir, be free to take on those, who agree with those who say this will cost less than you think it can, and many of my friends in the environmental community say that. I believe that, in which case they should be perfectly okay with putting a cap on runaway cost. We do that in every other environmental statute that's been enacted since 1970. There's no reason why we can't be sure that we don't do something stupid to the economy if you do it right, because I believe it'll come in at less cost. In addition, we got to preempt all the overlapping mandates. If you want to, suspend them. But we need one set of objectives to work against, one system of making economic decisions to work against. Otherwise, you will not get the speed you desire. When you do that, you unleash innovation in natural gas, you unleash innovation in clean coal, you unleash the opportunity for nuclear and hydro, and renewables just gets a giant boost because it no longer has to guess when it's valuable and when it's not valuable. So, third, simplify the transportation mandates. On a bipartisan basis, Democrats and Republicans came together to improve CAFE by making it a little more market-based than it was before. Take the last step. Set up a fee-based system. We don't know. You want to look forward to innovation, not have the regulators looking in the rearview mirror decide what the efficiency level should be. So take the bold step. Move to a fee-based system and let the private sector figure out who wants to be the best each year, rather than have the government tell you what the best solution is. Same thing with fuels. We've made great strides with still a little bit of crony capitalism tied into the renewable fuel standard. You may recall, sir, that President George W. Bush wanted an alternative fuel standard. Technology neutral, weighted for national security, for energy density, and for emissions profile. That's still an option on the table, make it a lot easier to plan, and then we don't need to worry about what the right choice is. Let the market figure out how we get the lowest emissions with the highest security and the greatest energy density. Now, let's think about some role for government. So get the government out of saying what and where and when, just tell me how much. On the other side, it's very clear that we cannot have a sustainable long-term solution to climate change and to choking air pollution in developing countries unless we restore the place of nuclear energy and dramatically expand it. There is no better combination in most parts of the world than the combination of cycling nuclear power plants plus renewables. So, sir, the farmers and the cowhands must be friends. If we can get them together, they can accomplish more together at a lower total cost to customers in the economy. But that's going to require some government, because that's big infrastructure. That's a non-market challenge. It's going to require everyone to come together, say, we want to make it be part of the mix, and then let it compete into these market-based mandates that I discussed. There's a place, sir, that I come from, Silicon Valley, which has some of the brightest software engineers, electrical engineers, and academic institutions in the entire world. They have developed systems for every other sector that helps us completely understand what's going on within them. It helps us see into a level of efficiency that was just unimaginable before. This is a good place for the government, through its public utility commissions, to require the utility system to invest in their own success and deploy these systems to achieve a 25% efficiency gain in the entire power system. It cannot be done without these innovations. The utility structure today is incapable of absorbing them. 25% net economic savings to the entire cost of electricity in America is not something you can ignore if you want U.S. economic growth and global economic growth. And then finally, if we've subsidized everything and subsidized nothing, I do have a pot of about $150 billion to use. So let's take that $150 billion that's being used today to pay for technologies that are already proven and exist and are already subject to the mandates we just talked about. And why don't we take half of that and quintuple the federal R&D budget and put the other half of that to pay down the debt? Now, that's a winning combination that you can get conservatives and liberals alike to agree on. Related to that, then, let's take a look at where the real money is in the economy. And the real money is the amount of money that is not being taxed. Everything I've told you is small in relation to the capital that would be available for new investments in clean energy if we slash the corporate income tax rate, if we provide for 100% expensing on new capital equipment purchases to drive out old, less efficient technology, and if we repatriate the trillions of dollars that Americans' leading energy innovators have parked overseas and are not allowed by the fiduciary responsibility of their boards and of corporate law to bring back to America and reinvest in the American clean energy system. If you do this, you're either going to inspire or scare China and India into doing the same, which is the final and essential requirement of a sensible clean energy strategy, because we cannot impose costs on ourselves such that we simply move our emissions over there. Certainly we can all agree that a policy that takes emissions from here and increases them over there is something no one wants. So let's do this in a way that gets them on board and excited about what we're doing. Thank you, sir. I look forward to your questions.